Adley, could you check the sign-in, the floor items too, please? All righty. All right. Mr. Lena, would you call roll, please?
Mayor Pilon.
Present.
Councilmember Rainville.
Present.
Councilmember Elders. Anybody haven't heard anything? Councilmember Flattable. Does anybody know anything there? No. And Councilmember Bryan.
Here.
Deputy Clerk Natalie Johnson.
Here.
Chief Deputy Bill Jacobson. And Scott Langer, City Administrator, is present. Roll call state.
Thank you. I have an amendment to the agenda. I would like to pull from the consent agenda the October 8th meeting minutes. The item D, accept the third quarter financial report. And item G, ICMA membership contract. Any other amendments to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan.
I'd like to move from new business items C and F to the consent agenda. Mr. Mayor.
Let's see, hang on, let me catch up here. All right,
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan.
if there are no other amendments, I wish to move the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
I have a motion, Councilmember Bryan, second from Councilmember Rainville. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I'll start with the public forum. We have Mr. Sam Corns would like to speak.
Good evening. My name is Sam Barnes, address 19223 Burns Parkway. I'm just going to make it, I'll try to make it quick, I suppose, but we're back here in another city council meeting because we just can't seem to get this dialed in on a day-to-day basis. So Saturday, the 9th of November, I was out, like a lot of us, hunting, me on my property, and right about the prime time is what I'm going to call it, I got joined by my neighbor's 4 wonderful dogs running right through my hunting area. Now, that'd be something if it was the first time, but that marks the 9th total time that not only have they come through documented, but the sheriffs have responded to that address for their dogs running loose. I've got a lot of questions about this because there's zero consistency with anything. We can date back to the 15th of February. That's when the administrator, Scott Laner, had told me that there's no sense in putting in a code complaint because he won't do anything about it anyways because the sheriff's office is the authority for the dogs running loose. And I can understand that. That makes sense in my mind. But there's zero consistency with the sheriff's office, and that's a sad misfortune. It's something so stupid and so minute that I have dogs myself, but I have a fence, and if you can't control your dogs, just let them run through people's properties. And we have a code. We have a code for that. The city does. So why doesn't the city enforce the code? Let's see. Everything has a policy and procedure, and why am I getting so much resistance from the city for this issue? That's one question that I'd like to ask. I've talked to a couple different city council members. There's no answer. there's no answer. The incident on the 9th, which was Saturday, they sent the CSO out, and even after the previous citations, this household's been cited twice in the last nine times, inconsistently, of course. But this last, on Saturday, they weren't cited for it. And there's clear video evidence of it that I give to them every single time it happens. I wouldn't call if there wasn't. So I understand it's petty, but again, it's not their property. If you can't control your dogs, I don't want to be responsible for their dogs on my property. I can't walk my own dogs around my property because their dogs are running loose constantly. So on the 21st of October, I spoke with Councilmember Rainville. 22 days ago, she said that she would follow up with me about what the policy indeed said. If the city has a leg to stand on for sending a letter out, citing the household, so that the sheriff's office doesn't cite, then the city should cite. I mean, if the idea here is to cite the people, that way they stop the infractions by getting cited. You keep getting cited, you want to stop paying the citations, then you stop, then you fix yourself, basically. So that's where I'm at here. The expectations that I have for the city, use the city code, help your residents. I really don't see the complication and why I'm running into so many roadblocks with the city staff and council members on what the appropriate actions are to take. I'll leave that at that. And just the zero consistency. I've spoke to a couple of different deputies that patrol the area here, and now then, Deputy Matt, I believe his name was, he's fantastic, very helpful. Another one, Deputy Chris. The first time I spoke to him on February 15th, back to that day that I spoke with Scott Lehner, the first time that I actually spoke to this Deputy Chris, the very first conversation that I had, I explained to him what's going on, and I'm seeking guidance. I don't know what to do. I'm supposed to follow your guys' policies and procedures. If I had it my way, I would take an alternate route, but that's frowned upon. So I have to follow your guys' policies and procedures. Why don't you? So when I spoke to this Deputy Chris, the first words out of his mouth after I explained to him, he said, "Let me find the nicest way to say this." And I thought, dang, that's a heck of a way to start off a relationship. And then he told me it's none of my business. So he did later on let me know that they did get cited that time, but he said that I should not be made aware that the citation takes place, which fine, I get that. It's none of my business if they get cited. But if it's consistent, it should be none of my business. But if I'm not here today, it just continues, and it continues, and it continues, and it continues, and if they're not being cited, then what's the point? What's the point of having a code if you're not going to enforce it? So that's where I'm at here. I really would appreciate if we could button some of this stuff up outside of council meetings, because there are way more important things to deal with. I have more important things to do, I'm sure you do too. But we're here talking about dogs on property, so I apologize for that. But that's the floor item, so as long as it's brought up to everybody's attention, hopefully someday we can do something about it. Do you have any questions for me?
Not at this point. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
We move on to consent agenda as amended.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan.
motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
A motion, Councilmember Bryan, second Councilmember Rainville. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a number of consultants to address past due invoice and discuss code compliance.
Now you're double covered.
Yeah. It's red, should it be green?
Bottom button.
Got it. Oh,
This should be good.
okay. Thank you, of course.
Yes. long couple of days.
Dan, it's under engineering.
What?
It's under the engineering
Oh,
tab.
yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Instead of making a special
Instead
tab, we
of
put it
making
together.
a
That's-
special tab.
That's fine. Yep, we're good.
Not that you guys aren't special, but,
Thanks for that.
yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
The staff report that was put together, there's two topics that we're going to be speaking with tonight. One is the building permits that were issued prior to the effective date of our contract, and also some code enforcement. I'm Andy Schrader, Chief Building Official with Rum River Consultants. Carrie Levitsky is with me. She's our Program Administrator. So the staff report, I read through it again, does a really good job of bringing us up to date where we're at with this. And the topic of conversation are the permits that were, again, in existence prior to our contract date. The contract, as it's written, would require that to, not require, but would call that to be done on an hourly basis at $90 an hour. However, there was a better way to go about that, much less expensive way to go about that, which was grouping them together at a flat rate. Ms. Levitsky and I, we talked about this and we went through the most effective way to to address these permits. And since it was an approach where there would be like permits, projects grouped together, we chose a different approach. We went through there over a couple of days. We brought those into our system. We had access to the city computer system. We brought those projects into our current system, and we went through to analyze them and group them together, again, to be more efficient. And so that's the way we went about that in order to be more effective, more efficient, and to save some dollars in that respect. It looks like there were 128 permits that were effectively not closed out prior to our contract date. So that's what we were left with, was 128 permits that we went back to, again, bring them into our system. We went by each one of them to analyze where they were at in the process. If it was a set fee permit, like a residential maintenance, roofing, siding, and windows, that requires one touch. Other projects such as new homes, remodels, and things of that nature, there were a number of inspections that were still remaining. So even though there were 128 permits, there were numerous more inspections than the actual number of permits themselves. So I guess that's really the only introduction I have on the topic. Any questions or things that we can help clarify?
Any questions on the part of the council? The bill was $19,000, or 19,000 plus.
620.
My only question is, any deal, Councilmember Rainville?
Can we get a motion and then a second so we can have discussion? So I would move that the council thanks Rum River for their work and their patience, and that the council authorize the payment of the $19,620.
I'll second the discussion.
All right, so I have a motion by Councilmember Rainville, second by Councilmember Bryant. So the, as you'll see when you see your attorney's bill this month, there was an extensive discussion after we pulled this from the agenda last summer to identify. Now, this was part of the messy transition from Minspec to Rum River, and so there were a lot of hours put in trying to figure this out. Authorized by the council, I did investigate. I talked with the state building officials, talked with our attorney extensively, and in the short version of it is, this was an agreement that was made prior to council's awareness. This was a bill that was submitted, invoice was submitted last April, with the understanding that we would proceed. The short version of it is, though the process wasn't done right, the commitment was made by the city to have a one-time bill, and it was a commitment made by Rum River to close out all of the open permits that were left behind when we separated from Minspec. So while the process isn't what it should have been, and I would hope going forward, we don't spend $19,000 without council approval. But we did in this case, and legally we are obligated because that commitment was made to Rum River. And so this is a bill we do need to pay. So hopefully going forward, we don't encounter things like this again, so.
If I might, Mayor and Council, under the terms of our contract, we were obligated to perform that work at $90 an hour. And what we did was to group them together again so we would not incur that $90 an hour fee.
Yeah, and the question that came up, and the reason it took hours to try and resolve with the attorney and with the state building code is which ones needed to be closed out, which ones were. There's a lot of confusion on the last bill that we paid with Minspect. They submitted an invoice for $6,500. We chose to pay $1,700 of it and contest some of those. So we really don't know how many of those were closed out, how many of them had to be closed out, how many of those had been started under Minspect and they had some of the money for it. How many of those weren't started under Minspect? So we weren't really clear as a council if some of these hadn't been started, and if, looking at the bill, the invoice from Minspect, it looked like some of those had not been started. Should not those residents been charged by Rum River to start and finish the inspection? Some of these things were, if it's 180 days before you have to renew the permit, well, they were over 180 days old. And that's what we went back and forth with the building official. If they're over 100 days old, and you didn't in writing issue a renewal, or Minspect didn't issue in writing a renewal, then that permit is void and they have to start over again. And so what we're doing is we're taking taxpayer money to pay you without knowing if the residents who got the permit should have paid you, or if we had a case, because there's still, last we heard, an issue with Minspect trying to collect on their last bill. So the issue is not, you did a great job. You gave us a flat fee, said we can clean this all up. The question I had at the time with staff was, to clarify, is that 19,000 include all your research time? When we got the bill, the invoice again this summer, it was like, if you don't do this now, we're gonna go back and bill you at the $90 an hour, and we'll bill you for the research time, and we'll bill you for those other things. And so, yes, it's for the city's best to go with the flat fee, because that's what the commitment was made by staff in April. And it's a better deal than going at $90 an hour. The question was, we never had a chance to have that discussion saying, should the people that are applying for this permit be paying for that rather than the rest of the residents picking up that tab for some of this? And how long did we have for Minspect to close those out before we made the transition to Rum River? Those are discussions that would have been nice to have back in February and April. And that probably was happening between your staff and our staff, but it didn't ever come up to the council. And so the bills kept coming up to the council, and we didn't have information. So it took me hours to try and resolve it, and ultimately what it says is the process was flawed, but staff made a commitment, you owe the bill. And so the shortest version of it right now is we have an obligation to pay it, and we have a motion to pay it. And so I think unless there's any other questions at this point, I say we go on the motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville.
I want to thank Rum River for their work on this. It was not a clear process. It was, could have been done better. It wasn't. But they submitted a bill and we delayed that payment. So I really appreciate their patience. I'm grateful that they're not charging interest on it. They've been willing to work with staff. And I just, again, it's my motion said that we need to pay this invoice and start anew.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I have the next bullet point under 4B, and that is to talk about Now Then's Code Compliance Program. There's, again, quite a bit of history in your packet before you tonight, just highlighting some of the important dates that have happened. So again, our contract was approved, and we started services here March 1st. Soon after that, it was requested that we meet with staff to go over options since the previous planner that was with the charge of code compliance was no longer with the city, and the city still had a priority for property preservation and maintenance. And so we began meeting with staff, going through some of our workflows. At that time, also the new city planner, Cindy Nash with Collaborative Planning, also met and was involved with these discussions. We had identified, along with the Nowlands project manager that they had engaged with at that time, we identified several areas within the code that should have been reviewed, even some items taken out of zoning, placed in general regulation, review of some nuisance language, and just an all-over review of the code language. And Ms. Genevieve brought that topic to the council at their March 18th meeting, at your March 18th meeting, and then reported back that at this time, no immediate action was going to be taken, and that she was going to be on leave between March 28th and May 6th, and also let us know that no new or current code compliance issues or complaints would be forwarded to Rum River, that it was in kind of a pause until either her return or if we received other direction from city staff. And so fast forward a little bit of time again, more calls were right at that time in April where the calls start coming in. Our understanding was that that had kind of sparked more of let's get together, have some more conversations. And at that time then, Administrator Lehner got the team back together, and we had met with the City Attorney Rupi and reviewed again some of these codes that needed to be reviewed, get a good alignment with the practices that are most commonly done in the code compliance sect, along with making sure that we were operating within statutory laws as well. And so following some of those meetings, it was brought back to the council, I believe, and again, that had been placed on pause, and now we're back again today. So what we're looking for, again, is some good solid direction from the city council on, would you like us to re-engage in some of these conversations? We think right now we're actually going through this with your neighbor, Oak Grove, where our code compliance team is going to be giving a presentation on the program as a whole, and seems a work session is an appropriate platform for that, so you can dedicate a good chunk of time, because it is a pretty big topic. That would be our recommendation if you'd like to move forward to get more information on the program that we offer. Answer any questions and to see if there is interest in that.
Again, there are those in this council that in past history were very concerned with process. And while good things happen, process breakdown does cause confusion. The March 18th meeting minutes did direct that nothing else be done. So as you said, meetings continued to happen with the attorney, with yourself, so charges were continued without knowledge of the council, that those meetings were going forward. That being said, again, water under the bridge, but we keep going back to process issues and saying, well, that's too late for that, let's just pay bills or go ahead. The last request we had was for staff and contracted staff, as I recall, to come up with a process. what was the process? Because some cities start charging fines right away, which I think was one of the recommendations that I had seen in the process that had been floated out there earlier. Oak Grove does not start charging people. So I think it's a very important thing for residents to know that we're not just out there looking for things to charge people with, or starting to fine people if they don't respond immediately. So the council seemed to, in the past, be most concerned about what would be the process. What are the letters that go out? How does it work? I mean, we wanted to see what staff could do first before we engaged Rum River. You know, can we do this in a nice way and say, hey, here's what could be potentially a violation. It looks like that's a violation of the code. Can we get this cleaned up before we start engaging a stronger approach to them, which has always been the city of Nowlands' approach. So that, I thought, was what we were expecting tonight, was what is the process? But as you said, Carrie, a work session would be good for that. And what are the letters that would go out? What would cause them to go out? What does staff do first before it goes over to Rum River? And this is what we've been pondering, I guess, for the better part of a year. And it seems like we just haven't been able to get it off the table, and so we just say, well, we have no process, so we just don't process complaints.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I might?
Yes.
I just want to clarify for the audience and council members, Rum River has not billed, nor do we intend to bill the city of Nowland for any work that has been done up until this point. I can't speak to any other consultant that was involved, but I can state from on Rum River's behalf, we will not be, nor have we, billed for any of those meetings and work.
We appreciate that, too.
Yeah.
We have received bills from others.
We look at this as a partnership, just as we do as you're being your designated building official. You brought up a very good point, Mr. Mayor, that dealing with these very sensitive issues in a manner that is respectful, thoughtful, intentional, clear, is extremely important. And we believe that we have the staff that can accomplish that. We have an entire division, housing division, community development division within Rum River, and we have certified inspectors and people that, get continuing education on this every year. And it really impacts having that skilled, technical, not just technical, but also the soft skills that is needed to interact and communicate with your residents in a very respectful manner. We believe that we have the right staff for that. We are in several other jurisdictions. Oak Grove, yes, is one of them. One of the biggest concerns with one of your neighbor over there is how long it takes for some of these cases to get closed out. And it is true that we are and would be, you currently have an administrative citation process, and they do not. They are entertaining that. It is very common because the only two paths are civil and criminal. Criminal really puts the focus on the person and not the property. And civil takes an extremely long time and is a lot more expensive. Attorneys are a lot more expensive than Rum River. So not only do we have the expert staff, we have a tried and true program that we have in several jurisdictions. And I'm more than happy to provide you with those contacts for those city administrators. We'd like to have conversations with them to see how it's going and how it has gone for years. It's a really tough subject, and I think you really need to have that skilled approach with your community members on how to get into compliance.
Well, I don't disagree. It's just, it's been a pending issue for the better part of a year, and we've just gotten nowhere on it.
And there isn't a black and white. You have your administrative citation structure within your program.
I understand it.
Yeah.
Excuse me for interrupting here, but, and I just need to know where we're going with this so we can keep the meeting moving here. you're looking for direction to say, is the council willing to move forward with some type of partnership in this? And I may not be here for when that meeting happens, but my concern has always been when we turn things over to professionals who do this in many other cities, that what works in bigger cities, what works for other cities, isn't necessarily a match for now then. When we started looking at, planning and zoning was starting to look at changing ordinances because of conversations you guys had with the planner, to say these should be moved over to nuisance, her comment at planning and zoning was, this will make it easier for Rum River to enforce these. And so we're looking at, are we making it easier for, we hire good professional contractors. We engage you because of your professionalism and your interaction, your ability to interact with residents. But when residents are getting cited, when residents are being accused of violating code, and the building official or the inspectors for the building official are the same ones that are on people's property for other reasons that might see some of these violations. Again, where is the check valve on that?
I'm sorry.
How do we, and that's the discussion we haven't had yet. What's the process? How does it go through the city? How is it communicated to the council? And how is it followed up? And how we have the separation of the building officials on your property for something else. We had a big issue 2 years ago with that. Somebody was on the property or making a statement that never got verified, and it ended up being months and a lot of animosity when there really was no violation to begin with.
If I might?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for the opportunity for bringing that up. They are completely two separate and apart issues. The building inspectors are there to administer the state building code. We're not there to respond to concerns or complaints about condition of premises, things of that nature. The code compliance is based on whatever format you want that to look like. Are they anonymous complaints? Do they come with a name? That's entirely up to you. The community development department through Rum River is completely separate and apart from the building inspector. If we're out there looking at a roof and there's junk and debris or outdoor storage, that's not our concern. That's not our direction when we're there at that time. So there's no overlap, none whatsoever.
And I appreciate that, but I'm just saying, we haven't had those discussions.
Right.
So,
Thank you for the opportunity to
Yes.
explain that.
yeah.
Because I can see where that could be perhaps muddied.
Councilman Bryant.
In the interest of time, I make a motion to set up a work session as soon as we can with the Now Then staff and Rum River Consulting to format our existing, to revisit our current code compliance process and see if Rum River would be able to accommodate that and include discussion on any future changes or adaptations that may need to be made.
Would second that?
The motion, Councilmember Bryan, and second by Councilman Rainville. Any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Rainville.
Councilmember Bryan, I'm wondering if you would be willing to amend it to, that we would wait until January, it's November. We've been dealing with this for a while. I mean, we had issues prior to with the previous plan or two, and that there wasn't any follow-through, and that caused us much difficulties. So I would like to wait until January so that we have our council members and that they can participate in it. It's a learning experience for them to see what it is we have, what we've done in the past, and how can we, if we need to, better that process. I think that the administrative process that we had in place was good. When we used it, it worked. We just didn't use it, which is, for many reasons, wasn't right. But I'd like to ask Councilmember Bryan if he'd be willing to have that meeting in January with the council.
Mr. Mayor, at this time, I do not wish to wait till January. We have, as was mentioned, we have a current compliance process that is in place and just needs to be adjusted to have a different administrator to, whether it be our former planner or Rum River Consultants. So if my question to Rum River Consulting was, can you currently, for when we meet, can you currently administer our existing process, while we then could potentially set up another meeting in January or whenever to, if there's a proposal to look into a different model for code compliance. So we have something in place that we can do now.
You do have a program in place. It's not the preferred model, and
understand
and
that.
I definitely and respect that what works for one community might not necessarily work for another. But similarly to building codes, when you have a process that is in place, that has been tested all the way to administrative hearings, court, things like that, and that is, it's effective. It's, slightly different, and again, at a work session, we would be able to really get into the weeds and do some of those comparison. The language revisions that I have proposed, actually was more to do with an ambiguity within the code language, not to make it easier to, administer the program. There are areas within the current Nowland City Code that, that has been in other city codes there's precedents where judges have thrown that back out, saying this is not clear language, it isn't clear enough. And so to go through that whole process to knowing that the language wouldn't stand up if it needed to, it's been my experience that by looking at those and making some adjustments, or at least having the discussion, and us being able to demonstrate why we feel that way, would be my approach. I'd like to, if we have
To that point.
work session, it'd be a good idea.
The planning and zoning, when the planners said they were actually moving, it wasn't nuances of language. It was moving from one section of the code to another, taking things out of code, putting them into nuisance so they're easier to enforce. It was significant changes that were being proposed in our ordinances, in our codes. The other part of it, to Councilmember Bryan's questions, we've been hearing for months that we just can't do anything because we have no code enforcement. We have a process that's been in place. The idea of code enforcement is not to be nailing people to the wall, not to be citing people. Most people just don't know. They move out to Nowland, they aren't aware. And so a clarification of, you have some ordinances and there could be, the letter says there might be a violation. Most people clean it up. So to hold this whole process up where it's been sitting months, and I don't know, I haven't seen a complaint log, but understanding that there's probably a massive number of complaints that could be cleared up relatively quickly. And to Councilman Rainville's point, that if we want to have a more robust workshop to improve the system, and after the new council's in, that makes sense. But we have a month and a half, 2 months before that work session, before something could be resolved and codes could be changed. It could be many months out. And if there are residents, as we've been told, that are complaining and not getting any response from the city, why not start it right away with the system that's in place? With the idea being a word to the wise is sufficient. And if we have somebody who's not cooperating, then we have a more robust system that can be enhanced in the future to be more effective if it has to go before a judge. But very few of our cases have to go before a judge. And so getting something in place, because all we've heard all summer long, all spring and summer long, is we can't do code compliance because nobody's there to do it. We don't have staff to do it, and we're not going to do it. And so if you have staff to do it and we can engage you right away, what does that look like, and how quickly can we clean up the backlog of code compliance issues that simply need attention of, this may be a problem, let's check it out.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I would have to defer that to staff, where we are not aware, because we don't receive the complaints that comes through City Hall. And so we would need to take a look at what some of these open and outstanding cases are, the length of time, and maybe some of learning up the background on some of the reasons why it has taken quite a bit of time to get action done. I think there's a little bit of learning on our part as well.
Because there's been nobody to do action. there has been no response because we've been told there's nobody to do, no one to take action on. So I have no idea, I don't know if the council has any idea how thick or thin that complaint log is, or what the nature of the complaints are, because we've requested a number of times, and I don't know what it currently is. If there's a lot, if there's a few, if they're significant, if they're not. But if the process is there, can we use it? Councilmember Alders.
I guess I tend to agree with Mary. It feels like this would be a good opportunity for the new team to come in and take a fresh look at this. I think some of the issues that we've had with code compliance is there's a lot of variation in Nowland in terms of, we have a lake community, we have a 2.5 acre community, we have a 5 acre community, and we have a rural community. And we're trying to put all of these same ordinances in place for all of those different types of properties. And that inconsistency is what's gotten us into trouble. So it feels like a good workshop to go through some of these examples that we potentially have and see where they fit and see where we need clarity in the code would be beneficial. If we just turn on a program that they're saying may not be the best fit in the next month and a half after we've waited a year and a half, I don't know if that adds a ton of value.
Except for those people that have been waiting for their complaints to be addressed. But
So, Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Lehner,
so to make a statement that you haven't been provided with any code compliance, and then you shifted it and said recently, that's not a fair statement. We've provided this council with what we've been dealing with code compliance. Second of all, I've worked with Rum River. We got the flow chart done, we got the letters done, and we got those things done. Might be the meeting you're referring to right there. The last direction I was giving your city administrator when it comes to code compliance was try to make a phone call, talk to these people, see if you can resolve it over the phone. If it doesn't get resolved over the phone, then bring it to council, and council can make the decision if we need to do that. What we've been doing is we've been keeping it on a report. We've tried to contact everybody. I'm the one that's making the contact with folks if they have concerns. And if it goes past that, I was hoping we were going to be able to start working on some of these. Back to what Rum River's talking about here. There has been work that was done to it, but in one of the last meetings, you guys have said to me that you want me to be able to call them, you want me to work on the process, but you don't want me to touch ordinances. You guys all recall talking about that? You guys didn't want me messing in any ordinances. So the reason to bring them in front of us tonight is to try to get some consensus with the council. Can we take a look at some of these ordinances? Can we try to change some of these, or at least have a discussion around them? Because if we're gonna put a process in place, but the ordinances aren't gonna support it, then I'm just wasting money, and I don't wanna do that. Time and money from staff and from Rum River. So when we were discussing this and bringing this in front of the council let's just make sure that the council's all on board, exactly what I'm being accused of not doing, but get council on board to make sure that we're all in agreement on how we want to march forward. We didn't bring a workshop tonight. That wasn't our intention at all to bring a workshop tonight to be able to do that. It was what does council want? Are you okay with it? Let's take a step and then let's move towards the next step. So I just wanted to clarify that a little bit because I don't think we're all on the same page when those things are being said, so. Thanks.
so are there code issues that could be cleared up under our existing process on that list?
Our existing process before Rum River got involved?
Yeah.
I was asked to take care of them over the phone if I could, and then log them if we
The
need to.
system we've had for years,
Yeah.
under Liz.
Yeah,
The letters that we have, the identified where there might be a violation of code, send out the letter and see if it gets cleared up. Are there simple things like that on that list that could be cleared up before a work session?
potentially. I'd have to take a look at it again. There could be something.
And I think that's what's being requested. Can we clear up some of this and then let the new council have at it? Change all the ordinances, or change the ordinances as needed, so that it's clear and people know what they're being accused of and how they can remedy that. And they understand the process, start to beginning. If you don't cooperate, here's what happens. Because again, that's what we don't have in front of us. So if that's the work session that half the council wants to have after the first of the year, But can we do anything between now and then? Because whenever that, you're not gonna have it the first week of January probably. You might have it in mid-January, you're still gonna be, by the time you get that process in place, you could be looking at February. So now you're talking about that many more months, and if no remedy of complaints has been happening for many months, then we're talking about a year without resolution. So does it make sense to do something in the interim and let the new council come up with a better system based on what other cities are doing?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Rainville.
so Councilmember Bryan has a motion on the floor, and at this point, I have kind of forgotten what it was. So if Councilmember Bryan could revisit his motion, and maybe we break it into two. One is let's work on what we have now. In the last month and a half, I think we've gotten the code compliance list, or the complaint list. And so if we would direct staff to look at that, to continue their work with Rum River, what can we do to complete off any existing complaints, the easy ones, I would have to say. Do that, and then the second piece would be to have a workshop in January with Rum River and staff and the council to say, where are we with what you're proposing? How does it mesh with what we have? What recommendations do you have? And then move forward with that. Is that?
Councilman Bryan.
So my question after the motion was made was, I guess the first part would be, A, has Rum River Consulting seen our existing process with the letter system? And then there's follow-up after that.
Yes, back in March, and it is identified in the city code.
Okay.
The answer to that would be yes, the
Okay.
short answer.
Okay. Then the follow-up question is, does Rum River Consulting have the capacity until we come up with a revised compliance policy to administer now then's current compliance policy?
Yes, I believe we do. I would like the opportunity to review that in its entirety again.
Okay, I understand that.
Fair
So
enough.
I understand, so my motion basically wanted,
Can I clarify your question?
sure, well, go ahead.
Do they have capacity, not, is our system good? Do you have capacity? If you're saying you have people on your staff that can go out and respond to
That's how I
compliance.
understood, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
That is how I understood that question.
So
is,
right now.
do
is
we
a-
have the staff to be able to administer your current program? The answer to that would be yes. And I apologize that I did not answer that.
No, that's okay.
previous-
That's where I was
previous.
going, but I just wanted to go. So we have a compliance policy, with the first step being, hey, somebody said something, here's a letter, are you doing it or not? No, it's not even necessarily going out yet to that point. But if we have a mechanism in place, and Rum River Consulting can administer our current process, where we're switching our administration from our former planner to Rum River Consulting as far as administering our current process, then I'm okay with scheduling a meeting whenever to revisit that exact same process, or the compliance process, to modify it as the council sees fit.
Right.
Based on the recommendations from Rum River Consulting.
May I ask a clarifying question, please? Typically, as long as the complaints come through City Hall, we just don't want our staff arbitrarily making decisions on which complaints are valid or concerns that come in are valid and which ones are not. We would appreciate that being vetted through by your staff and feel that that's most appropriate.
Which I don't believe would be a problem.
Wouldn't that be the same either way?
I'm sorry?
Wouldn't that be the same with your revised system?
Absolutely.
So
I
that's,
just wanted to make sure that that was.
that's
everybody
been the
understood that.
council's
Yeah.
direction all year long, was it should come through staff first and make sure that it's something valid before it's turned over and costing more money, because somebody's got to pay for your services. But if that's gonna be the same, whether you have a new and revised system or the existing system.
So Dan, Part one of your motion is to
If Rum River
Administer-
Consulting
have
can
Rum-
handle it now,
have them handle the current
they can
process,
handle the current process now,
schedule a work session
whenever. I
to be
don't,
determined
I would rather do it sooner than later, or at least start before
in
December.
January.
I'd rather start before December, but if,
I like January.
yeah. Because there's probably some preliminary stuff that we can get out of the way and then go into January. That's my opinion, but if, we can schedule it whenever, but at least to have Rum River administer the current process as it is, and then we can revisit the entire process at a later date, whatever that date is.
Okay.
So let me ask this, since this has been on the docket since last April, I'm assuming you're ready to go with that work session. You've got a system that you're using in other cities, and this has been something that's been discussed for months and months and months. So if Councilmember Bryan's request that we have something as soon as possible, are you ready to go?
For a work session,
Yeah.
because we were told to halt, I've worked on already some potential amendments on the city code and have those documents, but we would need time to actually put together a formal presentation. I can verbally tell you what our process is, but it would be good,
I'm just saying, to the
I'll be
point,
honest, I need to be able to look at our calendar as well. To see, I mean, it is already the middle of November, and we're doing a lot of end-of-year reports and I take that on to do with our other jurisdictions and things like that, either at the end, in December or in the beginning of January. I would need some potential dates to ensure.
sure,
that we do have
and that's why we're here discussing this
bandwidth.
tonight. And so when Councilmember Rainville says,
Yes.
let's move it to January, that's the first that came up, that let's talk January. So it sounded like we're gonna do something as soon as possible. And now we're saying, yeah, maybe not. Maybe we're not ready for that. So
Mr. Mayor.
are we ready or not? Councilmember Bryan?
I'm including as soon as possible, and if Rum River Consulting wants to work with our staff to come up with some dates, then we can then coordinate things, and if it's sooner than later, great. If it has to be after the first of the year, great, but at least something is in place now, so Scott can take the existing complaints that he's vetted and go, here we go.
And Scott, to your point earlier, those complaints have come in, you've talked to the parties involved.
Yep, or
So
sent out an
they've
email
been
to me.
vetted as far as these are legitimate and something more should be done.
That is correct.
Okay.
I am vetting them as they come through.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question as well?
Mhm.
Will you guys, part of the code compliance, will you also do the annual inspections or rechecks with the IUPs and CUPs for us? Would that be part of it? Because that
That's
is a lot.
that's a whole nother thing. Now you're opening up a whole.
Well, that is the majority of the larger complaints.
If I might, Mr. Mayor, we do that work in other jurisdictions as well, and that can certainly be part of our process, is to follow up. Now, we work very closely we're also designated as fire code officials in some jurisdictions, and that is part of this, as far as following up on home-based businesses and conditional use and interim use permits. You're right, that is a whole nother avenue, but we do provide those services as well, since we're in the community, correct?
For years, we've asked our contract staff and staff to take a look at the IUP, CUP process. Do they even exist? Do the businesses even exist anymore? If an IUP's been inactive for a year, it's gone. If a CUP is, the property has changed, if the use has changed, and so we asked, first of all, just find out if they even exist. And if they don't, if somebody buys a property and they've got a commercial use on it, and they're paying tax on a commercial use that they're not doing, maybe they want to get rid of it. So our plan years ago was to identify those, and anybody who wanted to get rid of that CUP and not pay the commercial taxes on their property, we would give them a lump sum, get everybody together that want to get rid of them, and we go to the county and try and process that out. The first step was
Mr. Mayor?
just, do they
We're
exist?
we're drifting here. Let's get back to.
I didn't bring it up.
I understand that, but we're going down a rabbit hole. It's for the interest of time. We've got a motion, we've got a second. We've had some discussion on, is it gonna be before or after the first of the year? Let's nail it down and move forward.
right, trying to clarify the motion then, so we know, because that's the other thing, we quite often say, I thought we said this. So what is the motion?
So the motion is that Rum River Consulting has the capacity, as they have the capacity to process, and be the administrator for our existing code compliance process, that Rum River would begin that as of today, and our administrator Laner would forward whatever vetted complaints that are available to be moved into the letter process to Rum River Consulting for processing. And then a meeting will be scheduled with Rum River Consulting and staff and the council to, as soon as it can, if it needs to go into January, that's fine, to discuss a revised compliance process.
I'll re-second that.
All right, we have a motion second, we had a lot of discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys, for being here.
All right, next item on engineering would be the road improvements recommendation. We have a motion on this one.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville.
I would motion that we receive and file. We're not going to make any decision on anything, so I would move that we receive this, that staff keeps it on the docket as far as when we start to look at doing roads in 2025, that this information is here for it, for our use.
I'll second that.
All right, the discussion would be, if the city plans on doing the 2025, the seven of them, they're on there. Typically those studies are started in the fall here. So if you're gonna do something, you could get behind the curve as far as the required meetings and the bidding for contractors for next year, but we have a motion to file it for now, and I'm guessing new council will bring it up as part of their capital improvement plan. So,
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Bryan.
Question for Administrator Laner is, I know that we've talked about in the past, do you know if Shane has engaged, or have we talked with Ramsey at all, if they are planning on doing the rest of what we've called the Rogers Lake area, and from where they left off west to 47, where we could theoretically look at doing Erkium? And if there's a need to, if it's possible to squeeze in the, I don't know the street name, the rest of Nowthen's share off of Green Valley, off of Vanadium. That was part of Ramsey's project. Is that yeah, I think it's uranium, that where Ramsey just redid that area this past summer. If that needs to be done, or if that gets somehow incorporated in.
To your point, Erkium is the one that Ramsey hasn't done anything south of the now-then border on Erkium.
Right.
And uranium, the 7 houses on uranium couldn't figure out why all that was done and their portion wasn't done. And somehow we missed that Ramsey was doing the neighborhood south of now-then on uranium. And so you go on this nice new road, and then you hit our road in uranium, and it's not so nice. So, to your point, you're asking to find out when Ramsey is looking at doing the Erkium south of 181st and that neighborhood, and can they, when they bid that, put in uranium from 181st up to 182nd? Is that correct?
So I don't know if that's been talked about at all.
The only recollection I have of talking to Shane about, it was on Erkium, I believe, was that they were talking about that didn't need to be replaced, that they were looking to do some seal coating and that type of stuff, but that was early on, so that's old information potentially. So I just wrote a note down to follow up with him on that. In this one, I was asked to put together the 3-year plan. We put $500,000 a year into the capital budget, and I asked Shane to go out and give us his best estimate of what it was. He actually came and drove and looked at these before he provided them to me. That's why it took a little bit. But that was what was requested of me to be able to get done, but I'll certainly follow up with that piece with Shane, that we haven't recently had a conversation about that, no.
And it's a bit unusual, but that uranium part, that 2-block area of uranium, be pretty expensive to do if it wasn't part of another project. So we could somehow.
Did we ever recall, was that part? Did that name ever come up in our discussions or anything that we had as a?
No, I don't know why.
We
it
didn't
didn't.
know we didn't know
Yeah.
Ramsey was doing it.
Okay.
It was one of those things that
Could have been
we would have
overlooked.
expected that, that when the project was bid in that part of Ramsey, they said, oh, by the way, here's a dead-end cul-de-sac that's a block long, we should talk about doing that too. And we just missed it because it's, you're a long way out of now then to get to it.
Gotcha.
And we were focusing on Rogers Lake and didn't realize that Ramsey actually included both parts in their bid, so.
And didn't do the one in between.
Right, yeah.
What was the last part? Did what?
They didn't do the one in between.
Oh,
Tertium is between Waco and uranium. They didn't do that, but they jumped over off of vanadium and did that neighborhood over there, so.
all right.
All right, so all those in favor of filing that report?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I didn't see anything in here on our fire department,
That is correct, sir.
so no fire department. All right, Chief Deputy. Maybe I was a window or door open somewhere.
The door could be open.
Scott, check and see if the door's open. Been busy up in the north end, huh?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and citizens of Nowthen, I have for you the October 2024 Sheriff's Report for activity in the city of Nowthen. We did respond to 139 calls for service. Overall, year-to-date, we're down 41 calls from 23 to 24. Of those calls in 2024, 16 were to bar none, 3 animal calls, 17 medicals, and 16 animal complaints. In the interest of time, you see the summary of the bar none calls in your packets. Lots of calls of assaults, fights, and other altercations at the campus. A few I will highlight. On the 15th at 3:09 p.m., we responded to the campus on a report of a resident that had assaulted a staff member. That resident punched a staff member in the face and then pushed another staff member. That resident was arrested for assault and damage to property and was transported to the hospital for care. A few other important ones, we had a number of calls of fights in progress and disorderly juveniles. On the 27th at 11:12 p.m., we responded to the campus on a report of 4 juveniles that had fled on foot. They were all entered as runaways, and then later, the following morning, they had burglarized a business in Oak Grove. Those juveniles were discovered after they set off the alarm at the business, and all 4 were arrested and booked at the Lino Lakes Juvenile Center. That call required 8 squads to resolve, given the burglary, and of course, when we respond to those calls in an act of burglary, we don't know they're juveniles, we don't know what's going on, so we respond in force to keep the community and our deputies safe. Calls for bar none from 23 to 2024 are up 252% year to date. I have a meeting scheduled with the Patrol Command, with bar none administration early next week to discuss some background and see if we can come to some resolutions on reducing calls for service at the location. Some other noteworthy.
So just quickly before you get off of bar none.
Yes, sir.
16, I mean, this is unusual.
Yes, sir.
For them. I mean, 252% increase 8 squads to resolve, 5 squads to resolve, 6 squads to resolve, 5 squads. That's a lot of manpower.
Mr. Mayor, it is, and frankly, we're concerned about the number of deputies that are having to respond to that facility. And we're looking for some creative solutions to reduce calls there. We do talk regularly with their staff, to try to find some collaborative solutions. We're not having much luck right now. And if we are called to the facility for what's reported as emergency, we are going to respond. So it does create, it puts us in a tough spot. We will respond. We will make sure the residents, the staff, and the community are safe, but we are also appropriately concerned about the number of hours being spent there.
So, and it's not on the agenda, but Scott, can, a number of months ago, even last year, we were going to, council agreed that you and I would meet with Attorney Rupie and try and come up with the appropriate CUP, because it seems like they're expanding their services there, and they're expanding to clientele that they're not capable of handling. And we've gone through this repeatedly, but you're looking at this report this month, it's gotten completely out of control. And it's beyond what we believe their CUP, if anybody knew where it was, allows them to operate under. So, Scott, do you have you and Mr. Rupie had any conversations on the CUP regarding Bar None?
Other than the conversations be coming up and that you were gonna be part of it, Chief Deputy and I talked a little bit. When they closed down that Walden housing unit, we did see a reduction, and we were hoping that it was gonna stay like that. But obviously, after we had our leadership meeting last week and Chief Deputy shared with me the numbers and all that kind of stuff, it is on my high priority list to be able to do it. But no, we did not start without you. That was going to be you and I and Bob and Chief Deputy start having those discussions, so.
Can we have that, because I've got 16 years in on this, and I've got a lot of history with it. Can we schedule that as soon as possible, because
Somebody knocking? What was that?
Door lock?
no, that sounded like gunshots.
Somebody locked the door? I checked the door, it was closed, but I didn't lock it.
No, that was over here.
Right, but they're on the ramp probably, right, trying to get somebody's attention. I guess.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville.
we did give direction about a year ago, and then we also gave direction about 2 months ago, because we didn't remember that we'd given the direction before. I would prefer that we send them, and I've said this numerous times, send them a cease and desist. They don't have any proof of, that they have anything from the city of Nowthen that allows them to do anything. And they're running a business they don't have a license for. They're not equipped to do it based on these reports. Stop. If they want to come to us after they figure out what they want to offer their clients, they can come to us and start new. But at this point, it'd be no different than if a business or a residence was operating something they didn't have a license for. We would tell them, stop. And I think we've gone far enough down this road that we need to just tell them to stop.
I think we had that proposal to the attorney at one point, and I have to go back and look at notes, but we weren't able to just do a cease and desist. And we'd have to check what that is. But if we could get the group together as soon as possible, because we've got tremendous amount of history on this to get into a CUP, and if we can get this documented, and if we can do a cease and desist, that's great. We still have to document what it is they're allowed to do there.
But
And to the attorney's point is, we have to make that such a solid document that these incidences can't happen anymore.
But isn't Mary's point is if they don't have an existing CUP or IUP, they don't have a permit to do anything. And then they can come to us and say what they plan to do, and then we can ask how they plan to keep the place safe so we don't get 16 calls a month from our sheriff's department, and they can apply for
an intern's permit.
an IUP.
Because
Because there's no record of one, correct?
there's debate over that. Nobody can find it on the county level because this was a county situation before we incorporated.
Barnum can't produce anything either.
They can't produce it, and we know for a fact that whatever they thought it was to begin with has changed multiple times in the last number of years.
I agree with Mary.
So, it certainly if we can do a cease and desist, that'd be the easiest way to start, and they can start over again with an IUP or CUP that's crafted in such a way that this never happens again.
What, Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Rainville.
It would have to be, they'll have to look at our zoning, and if our zoning does not allow them to do what it is they want to do, then they can't apply. I mean, if our zoning doesn't allow A, B, or C, then they can't do A, B, or C. But if Mr. Lehner could check with the attorney to see what the status is of a previous direction to do a cease and desist. I don't recall getting anything back from the attorney at all in all the time we've talked about this. So I don't know if he had the ability to figure that out, you know, what he has.
And if that's not the case, if we can do that immediately, we'll do that. I still think we need to then craft what the conditions would be for going forward. But
Do you want Mr. Mayor cease and desist? That's the one is that what you're referring to? If we can do that, yeah, gotcha.
And if we can't, then we have to figure out what we can do to remedy the situation.
So can we get that in a motion?
Is that a motion?
Or something?
Yes, that's my motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion which is what?
For city attorney, excuse me, the city administrator to reach out to the city attorney in regards to a previous direction of authorizing a cease and desist for the Bar None facility. If we are unable to do a cease and desist, how can we get them into compliance to meet existing zoning ordinances? If they can't come into compliance, then they can't be there. No different than any other business, whether it's operating in a commercial area or a resident operating something in their home.
All right. That being the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Second?
I
Yes.
second it.
Sorry, Chief.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Sorry
And-
about that.
No, you're good. And then just to, Mr. Mayor, just to comment on the staff up there, they have been very strong communicators with me and the sheriff's office and trying to come to solutions. They've been at the table. I think that the fact that we have not come to solutions frustrates everyone involved here, but they are more than willing to communicate with the city and be part of the solution. So I think their intentions are good. We're just not finding a path to being successful here. So
Let me ask a question on that. So when we've met with them before, part of their resolve last year was to tell staff not to call the sheriff. Let's handle it ourselves, and calling the sheriff at the last resort, because we're trying to get calls down. Do you think some of these escalations where we're seeing 5-to-8 squads responding, do you think that's because they've tried to handle it on their own and it's gotten out of hand, or they just have a different clientele?
Mr. Mayor, I think it's probably a mix of those things. They did close down their shelter program temporarily while they sort of reevaluated it, as the administrator alluded to, but I think that they have brought in others in the other programs to backfill those shelter spaces. So I think that has created additional calls. Frankly, they just have more kids there, which creates additional calls. And in reading into some of the reports, because I see them all, I think that our deputies who are working the road are encountering staff who have less experience and are less trained, given just the amount of turnover that the facility has seen. It's a hard job, and folks take it on, and they do the best they can, but it's a hard job. And I think that we do want them to call if things escalate out of control so people don't get hurt, but I think that their turnover in their staffing is creating some of the issues that our deputies are seeing on the front lines. Other noteworthy incidents in the city for the month of October. On the 1st at 4:12 p.m., we responded to a report of a dog at large, 6700 block of 189th. This is a pit bull that we've responded to a number of other times. The owner was cited. On the 8th at 1:27 p.m., we responded to 182nd Lane on a report of an elderly male who had passed out after being stung by a bee. First arriving deputy found the victim was unresponsive and not breathing. CPR was initiated. We had assistance from Now Then Fire pretty quickly. Tragically, the male was pronounced deceased at the scene. On the 19th at 8:27 p.m., a deputy was on patrol in Nowland when he ran a registration check on a vehicle on Viking Boulevard. He found the owner of the vehicle to have a revoked driver's license and an outstanding warrant for his arrest. The deputy was able to confirm the owner of the vehicle was driving and made contact with him, and he was arrested on his warrant. He also was driving on a revoked license and cited for that. And then on the 20th at 2:57 a.m., we responded to the area of St. Francis Boulevard near Cleary Road on a report of a crash with injuries. The deputy discovered that the vehicle had left the roadway and struck multiple mailboxes. The driver showed signs of impairment but did deny drinking any alcohol. He was ultimately arrested for DWI after being found over the legal limit and was booked at the Anoka County Jail. I just have one final thing prior to questions. A member of our team at the Sheriff's Office, Deputy Chris, brought to my attention some outstanding work by a member of the City of Now Then staff. And I just wanted some time to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to read from the nomination letter here. This mostly was information provided to me by Deputy Chris. So we have some policies that you'll hear about how this works, but please indulge me if you go. In accordance with policy 101.3.4.3, I would like to nominate a community member for an ACSO office commendation. The community member, Natalie Johnson, is part of the administrative support staff for the City of Now Then. After an ACSO deputy reached out to her for help with a citizen in need, she responded with unusual thoroughness and conscientiousness. She provided superior service that brings credit to her community and Now Then's partnership with our office. Without a doubt, she performed well beyond normal expectations. The incident of note began when ACSO Deputy Chris was dispatched to a complaint of a recreational vehicle and camper parked on private property. The caller reported the vehicle had been in the parking lot and was occupied. Deputy Chris arrived and made contact with the occupants of the vehicle, and he advised them of the complaint. Deputy Chris learned the occupants of the RV had been living in the vehicle for the past 3 months and had been struggling to find a place to safely park without disturbing the community. Deputy Chris advised it was clear that the elderly couple was struggling and had medical issues. Deputy Chris advised that he did have to ask the two to leave the parking lot for the night, but told them they could stay in a nearby city park for the night. Deputy Chris advised he confirmed with the couple that they had food, water, and medications and what they needed to meet their immediate needs. But he was concerned about their long-term well-being. Since Deputy Chris joined the Now Then Patrol contract, he has developed a strong working relationship with Now Then staff, including Natalie. Deputy Chris recalled that Natalie was active in her church, so he reached out to her over the weekend to see if there was any other support that could be offered to this elderly couple in need. In Deputy Chris's words, Natalie sprang into action in a short period of time. She not only found a campground for the couple to stay at for a short time, she and her church paid for a week for them to stay there. Additionally, Natalie put them in touch with other congregation members specializing in social services for seniors to help them get the services they so badly needed. Deputy Chris describes Natalie as one of the finest people he has had the honor to work with in his career. He is advised that she has consistently been a great partner to Deputy Chris and his Now Then deputy partners. Deputy Chris wrote that he is grateful and proud to work in a community that is represented by people like Natalie. In this instance, Natalie put in several hours of her own time to help total strangers. Without a doubt, Natalie made a difference for this family and helped us accomplish our shared mission of helping those in need and making our community stronger. We cannot be more proud of Natalie, and she continues to be a great partner not only to ACSO, but to the Now Then community. In accordance with ACSO policy, I hereby request you consider this nomination, and if you deem these actions award-worthy, you forward them to the sheriff for review. And the sheriff did review this nomination. You are hereby being awarded with an ACSO office commendation. So join me, we're gonna. We got him there.
Yeah.
What do you want, Chris?
That's awesome. Well done.
Now turn around.
Now turn around this way.
Chris, hold on. One more
Turn this way.
Oh, one more. You want me in this?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yes.
Outstanding. Okay.
Congratulations,
So,
Natalie.
needless to say, we are proud of our partnership with the city of Now Then. And I work with Natalie all the time, every day, and she's great. And so I just wanted to thank you for allowing me to share that with your citizens, and just know that they're in good hands with her in the office there. With that, I'll stand for any additional questions.
Well, who can ask questions after that?
I was
Yeah,
gonna
I was
say,
gonna say,
none here.
but yeah, hard act to follow. I'll just say congratulations, Natalie.
Congrats, Natalie.
None of that surprises me, given your dedication to it.
Not, if anybody would have done it.
Other people that wouldn't.
All right, keep moving
Thanks for
here,
taking the
the
time to write it up.
Yeah.
planning and zoning. We have cannabis ordinance is being worked on. Looks like that'll be a work session in December after she consults with Attorney Rupie. All right,
Yeah, the goal was to try to get it here, just what, it wasn't finalized to be able to get it here tonight, so.
all right, administrator update.
Okay, couple things that you have on there, and then I got one quick addition, but the presidential election went very well, ran very smoothly. The judge team was, or the judges were awesome. Those of you that were there, which I think was all of you, you were able to see that in action. Natalie did a great job of putting that together. I can tell you I got multiple compliments. The potluck seems to be one of the favorites. People are always bringing a bunch of stuff in there. But several compliments on Lexi from the judges themselves on how easy she is to work with, and she knows her stuff, which she was trained very well by Natalie. So I'll give credit there. Even the residents had a bunch of nice things to say. People really like the church, being able to do it at the church. No offense to the fire hall, but it does condone well for what we're trying to do. The only complaint we got through the whole thing is the lights in the actual voting booths themselves. So we have a plan that we've already started working on there for next time around. It was a long day. Lexi's not here, but I'd like to thank Lexi and Natalie for the long day. We ended up, as we talked about earlier tonight, we thought once we got down to the county, that the county was gonna have things by 10:30, 11 o'clock. Well, I can tell you that your staff, to include myself, was still sitting at the city offices at 2:30 in the morning, waiting for things coming through. So we finally got out of there, and as you know, during the course of the evening, the results came out. So thank you to everybody that was involved in that, especially to Natalie and Lexi. I got over there that afternoon and spent the evening there, and it was a well-oiled machine. I was very impressed with what they were able to pull off, so. Update on McKenzie Hills, just, I met with Jason Gustafson a couple times out there. I've talked with Andy from Rum River today. We have our plan put together as far as the CO goes with that. I'm gonna probably make one more visit out there. The last time I met with Jason, he was super, super close to having everything done that we needed him to do. So I don't think that's going to be an issue, and he's been more than happy. I also brought Isaac Schultz out there with me, representing the fire department on the last visit, just to make sure that he knew that, or that his expertise on being able to get tankers and trucks and stuff in there. So I'm fairly confident, I'm very confident, I should say, that the McKenzie Hills situation will be resolved here very quickly. So status of the interim part-time fire chief. I don't have a whole lot there, other than I can tell you that the individual that we're sending to Martin McAllister, they have all his information. Mr. Miller's gonna need to just contact them and set up some time, and then once that time is set up and he goes through the evaluation, then I'll get the information back and I can share it with all of you. So that'll be the two individuals that are moving forward in this process. One of them's already done their background, the other one will be done here shortly, so.
Awesome.
So that should be getting done. I guess it's the night for Natalie here, so I just wanted to say thank you to Natalie. On Friday, she has her 3-year work anniversary. So if those of you that knew when Natalie came in here, 3 years has gone by in a hurry, but, so congratulations to Natalie on your 3-year work anniversary coming on Friday. And then a week from Thursday, or November 21st, Lexi will be off probation, and she'll have her 6 months in, and how time flies by already, but, so Lexi will be off her probation a week from Thursday, or the 21st. Before I get into the last piece there, because what I have here goes into the last piece, so I just wanted to quickly just provide you all with a little information here. So I just got a couple quick bullet points. The following points that I'm about to address here are unrelated to recent elections or the addition of Ken Shane to the council or the re-election of Councilmember Rainville. My concerns center around the lack of clear leadership, direction, expectations, and transparency regarding certain roles, such as the part-time fire chief code compliance, and as was demonstrated tonight with some of the topics that we talked about. I find the absence of support and respect from some individuals in this room and outside this room, along with the ongoing micromanage, to be quite troubling. Since my arrival, I have not received a performance evaluation or guidance concerning expectations. The breakdown of trust and respect reached a tipping point during the recent closed-door meeting, prompting me to bring this matter to light. All that being said, I'm sorry it has come to this, but Natalie is going to be handing around to you my letter of resignation. I can no longer do this anymore. Nothing has changed. I have not received an apology for anything that was done beyond that closed-door meeting. Nothing has moved forward. I've had no communication. So with that being said, as you look at my letter of resignation, I'll let you read it real quick, and I have a couple comments at the end. Yikes, you didn't break that, did you? Can we get another one of those? So I think most of you had an opportunity to read through that. My intention is to go out in good standing. 30 days from tonight will be December 12th, as you see in the letter. I would like to be able to just feel confident that you all, you know, with the holidays coming up and some stuff that's going on with my family, or also right now my family is actually going through sickness coming through the house, and I'm just trying to stay away from it, that if there was a day or two that I needed to use during this transition period out in 30 days, that the council would grant me the opportunity to be able to use a day here or there, or if I'm not feeling well, to be able to do that. The only reason I bring that up, because in our personnel policy it talks about not using any PTO time, but it also states in there that my contract overrides anything in the personnel policy. I just want to be perfectly clear going into this, that if I was to take a day or two, and I certainly would let you all know if something was to come up, that I would still be able to end my tenure here with the city of Nowthen in good standing, and that my PTO would be paid out. Right now, as of today, my PTO hours are 239 hours. That's subject to change if I take something or if I accrue anything, but as of right now, I would expect I will leave in good standings, and that the council then would be, treat me right, I guess, and be able to pay me out PTO, whatever's on the books at the end of my 30 days. I'm sorry it's come to this, I really am. I got a heavy heart. I appreciate the time that I've been able to be here. I appreciate the residents that I've met, the business owners that I've met. This is no way a reflection on any incoming council or anything like that, or re-elected council. It just got to the point now where it's affecting myself, it's affecting my family, and it was just time that I needed to take care of me. That whole closed door that we were all part of took about everything out of me and I couldn't believe where we ended up. And this process has been, I started this process just looking because I didn't know where the council was going to go during that closed door deal. But once we went through the closed door deal and how things were handled or not handled from my perspective after that, has determined to me that it's just, I'm not welcome here any longer, and it was time for me to protect myself and my family. And I made the determination that I needed to move on. So I wanted to share that with you tonight. I'm sorry that you may have felt blindsided, but I wanted to make sure that you guys heard it from me and didn't hear it from anyone else. My staff is aware of this, and I don't know what else to say other than it's time for me to move on, but I want to thank you for all the time and what you allowed me to do while I was here. But currently I just can't continue to operate the way things have been operated here in the city. So with that, I guess that's all I got to say on that. Other than I did bring it up before we have to talk about the next one. That's why I put it in that one spot. But
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Raymond.
Mr. Lehner, I'm really saddened by this. I'm so saddened. You've done an excellent job for us. There's been a portion of the council that hasn't provided enough support for you, and I apologize if I'm part of that. I understand what you need to do for your family, but I'm very saddened, and I'm saddened for staff. You've taken our staff and molded them, and they've been nothing but excellent employees, and their focus on doing things correctly and taking care of the residents and getting things done. You've done an excellent job. I have a better I see Joe back there. If he's still there, I got a better relationship with Joe now than I have in ever. And I appreciate that you helped foster that. I'm saddened.
I would like to ask the council,
Joe,
I guess for a motion,
Joe,
that when Scott leaves, Jeff and Shannon stays out of the office.
we'll take care of that, Joe. I appreciate you. I appreciate you bringing it up, but that's not. We're not going to do that. Right? That's not appropriate right now. Sorry to shut you down, but I'm going to have to, brother.
Well, I think it is appropriate.
Okay.
I got this word out.
Let's say this. It's duly noted. How's that? Okay. Okay.
Sounds familiar.
Mary, I appreciate the kind words. I feel the same way. I'm saddened also. It was difficult for me. Staff can tell you, I've been back and forth and back and forth. But ultimately, at the end, I just had to, as much as I love this city and the residents and the business owners, I had to put my health and my family first. And when I look at it through that lens, then the decision made. And it's hard for me because I consider all the guys in public works and staff, I consider them all family, all of us. But it just got to the point where I just had to do something. So I appreciate the kind words. Thank you very much. I have a heavy heart also right now. So
Thanks for what you've done and helping out with asking questions and having an open door.
you're very welcome.
Still owe you a hat.
Huh?
I still owe you a hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Scott.
Are we in agreement as a council then? Are everything in this acceptable? The 30 days, the
Yeah.
couple days if I need to do anything, all that is all acceptable? Okay. Thank you for that.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville.
I hate to say this, but I would move that we accept his City Administrator Lehner's resignation, and confirming that, according to his employment contract, he's got his 30 days. He does have the ability to use PTO if needed, and would be paid out for any PTO he has at the end of the 30 days. And that we, as a council, move to post for a city administrator.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Last thing I have on the administrator update here is office hours. And the reason I wanted to, obviously I said it once and I'll repeat myself, I apologize. But we wanted to, with everything that was just discussed right now, puts us in a situation here for office hours for December. And I may have Natalie speak into this a little bit because it affects her and it affects Lexi and it affects timing and all that through the end of the year. But part of that is we wanted to just see what the council's appetite was as being able to close the office for a period of time, if you will, here towards the end of December to make sure, or to ensure that these folks can still take their, so you can see that these vacations to Mexico and all that, these were pre-approved on the books way before any of this others. Oh, I see, I'm sorry, I see it on there. So there's
They just added it at the last moment.
Oh, so there's vacation, Natalie and Lexi have vacation scheduled from the 15th to the 22nd of December. They're in Mexico. That was approved when we still had Chris here, and we thought between Chris and I, we'd be able to swing it and all that kind of stuff. So I'd still like to be able to obviously honor that because it's their family trip. Then we talked about being closed Christmas week. As a staff, we did that, I believe, last year. We ended up closing that week. So what we're looking for is just, and Natalie, feel free to chime in if you want to, but we're looking for the ability to be able to maybe close the office for segments of time starting the middle of December through Christmas into New Year's, depending upon who we have for staff here. So their vacation is the 15th through the 22nd, then we got the week of Christmas.
So what are
No, it's
you,
not ideal, but
what are you proposing? That we be closed
you got your
the week of the 16th through the 20th and the following week? Or through Christmas Day or what?
I would think yes.
Well, for sure, the 16th through the 20th, unless somebody wants to volunteer to answer the phones and do recycling. Mary, please. I was planning on working Christmas week, except for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day anyway, because I was gonna work on year-end stuff. But, to be quiet, Lexi probably would come in and still answer the phone and stuff, but we had, the shop, everybody was gonna be off Christmas week, so I just needed to see what council would approve or not approve.
So you technically are saying the 16th through the 20th, and then Christmas Eve and Christmas, so you could be open a couple days that week, possibly?
You would still prefer the office closed. I mean, you take calls, but officially closed the 16th through the 20th, and then open for calls the 26th and 27th.
That would be outstanding, if we could do that. But if there's things that need to get done, residents could call and make an appointment.
Okay.
But year end is gonna have to get done.
Don't forget about the 31st.
What?
You're babysitting.
Oh, no, I took that off.
Oh, you changed it,
Yeah.
okay.
No,
We're okay?
I told my son
Can't
That'll
do it.
have to do the
Can't do it.
babysitting I was planning.
All right. So I think you heard it then. I had one other addition I thought she had on my calendar, but that's changed. So I think that is our proposal, if you will.
So the office would be closed the 16th to the 20th. The shop would be closed from the 23rd through the 27th. Is that what I heard?
Unless there's snow, then they'll come.
Right.
back.
Uh-huh.
And it was, I think,
It's not gonna,
you
it's
had.
not gonna snow.
It's not gonna snow. Yeah, I think it was, council that said that to use PTO for those days was what we had expected, so. And I think that's what, Public Works is planning on.
Alright.
Do we need a motion to make that happen, or?
I just needed to make sure you weren't gonna make me cancel the trip.
No.
All right, so we have a motion to close the office,
So moved.
15th and 16th through the 20th, and the shop, the 23rd through the 26th, pending the weather. 27th, sorry.
So moved.
So we have a motion, Councilmember Bryan,
Second.
second, Councilmember Rainville. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Have fun in Mexico.
Yeah, exactly.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan.
one question about the election. I know there was a lot of people there the morning of, where P1 was lined up back upstairs, but P2 wasn't. Do you think we need to look at in the next 4 years, that we have a third precinct?
And possibly, the county likes to keep them under 2,000.
Right.
And we're not quite there yet, so I know we'll go through those numbers when, Mr. Mayor reads out the caucus, or the canvassing. We've got all of that, but yes, I mean, they do wanna keep the precincts under 2,000.
I mean-
My problem right now is we didn't have enough, I only have 4 poll pads for that precinct, and all 4 of them were used. A lot of people came right away in the morning.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know if it tailed off or.
It did, and then
Okay,
it was
yeah.
pretty much steady all
Okay, so
day.
if it tailed off, then
Yeah.
it was just
It was
the
just that
first
very
morning
busy
rush.
before work.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah, Natalie pulled a good audible on that one too. She took stuff.
She's
from
moving
one
stuff
to-
over from one to the other side, yes,
She made it happen, yep, sure did.
All right,
Sorry if I didn't say it, that's the end of my administrator update, sir.
Thank you.
It's a terrible update.
Worst one ever.
all right. So new business, we did get from the county the election canvass. We have a resolution here. Whereas the city of Nowthen held an election for the office of mayor and 2 council members on Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. During the general election, and whereas on this 12th day of November, 2024, the Nowthen City Council has met the canvass and set election results. Canvass set election results. Whereas the votes tabulated at the set election results were: mayor for a 2-year term, Shane Hibben, 1,485 votes. Jeff Pilon, 1,317 votes, and write-in, 17 votes. Council for 4-year terms, Ken Glazer, 1,287 votes, Mary Rainville, 1,201 votes, Sherry Mady Olson, 856 votes, Steve Schmidt, 765 votes, and write-in, 22 votes. Now therefore it be resolved by the Council of the City of Nowthen, the official election results winner for the office of mayor for the term 2025 to 2027 shall be Shane Hibben. Be it further resolved by the Council of the City of Nowthen, the official election result winners for the office of council member for the term of 2025 to 2028. Shouldn't that be 2029? Ken Glazer and Mary Rainville. Motion for the adoption of the foregoing resolution was proposed by
So moved.
Councilmember Ryan, was duly seconded by
One second.
Councilmember Alders. And upon a vote being taken thereupon, the following vote is in favor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So all in favor and following, but none voted against. So it's passed and adopted by this Nowland City Council, 12th day of November, 2024. And to the point that Natalie had, the results were
The date on that is correct for my term. It's a 2-year term, it's from 25, 26. That means a line term.
in precinct 1, we had 1,981 persons voting, 93.8% turnout. Precinct 2, we had 1,108 persons voting and 94.86% turnout. The county-wide average was 88.64, so Nowland was represented well in addition to well above the county average. And we had like 3,400 people registered.
And then we ran the canvas around, one of them that they have to sign, everybody else is signing.
This one?
You know what, let's- Yeah.
Yeah, it's on, it's behind it.
I'll just,
Would you
you want
just
this
all
one?
sign one?
yeah, you sign that.
Thank you.
I'm a member of the canvassing board.
Yes.
Because you're the council.
Congratulations, Jason, you're on the canvassing board.
Just to make sure I don't sign myself up again.
20.
All right. Next item. We have an RCA for city council emails.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan.
make a motion to approve city emails for city council members and at $4 per month for Microsoft Outlook. Well, to approve city council emails, I'm just gonna leave it at that for the moment.
A second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Bryan and a second by Councilmember Rainville. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I don't believe we need to be paying for the whole office suite. Is $4 a month to create the emails, or is that literally because we have to have an Outlook account?
No, that's because of the email that with the server that's, or the host that's hosting it.
So
So
it's
it's
not
$4 a month to have the email.
$4 a month to have the email, not to purchase any software.
Right. And it's the, my problem with doing that without the suite is that if you don't have the suite at home or on whatever you happen to be using, you won't be able to open the words or the,
PDF.
yeah, the meeting minutes, the Word documents or Excel documents.
Well, but they're PDFs, but anybody could use any version of anything that can read an Office doc or in a spreadsheet or a PDF, and
They can?
they can pick whatever they want, and they should be able to view those.
Okay, I just
I'm
was
just-
off what they said.
I just wanted to clarify that there isn't any qualifier from our IT folks that they're saying, no, you have to have Outlook, you
No,
have
he
to
just
have.
said for Word and Excel or any PowerPoint or anything like that, they would have to be. But if they're just a PDF, I'm sure it'd be fine.
Well, but if I
A lot
had,
of documents I don't send out to you.
Right, there's several options, I just didn't wanna I was pretty confident that we didn't,
Okay.
that would work, I just wanted to clarify that that's not what our IT
We only
got.
talked about the Microsoft Office and
Okay.
Word.
Yeah, so,
We'll go with the $4 one.
They're still deciding.
if that's $4 to create the emails, and we don't need to pay for the software, like on my iPad, I'm not gonna use Outlook.
Right.
And if we,
This is just the email.
if it's $4 a month to cover the cost of the email, then then my motion would include covering the $4 per month for covering the cost for the emails.
Okay, to begin January 1.
That's fine.
All right, so you had a motion.
Second?
A motion by Councilmember Bryan, second by Councilmember Alders. Any other discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item C was moved to consent. Item D, move to amend the hiring process.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville.
I submitted this RCA in regards to how we are, the process for using, we would go forward using for hiring positions that report to the city administrator. In the past, we used a hiring committee when interviewing to fill open positions. This committee consisted of 2 council members, the city administrator, and the deputy clerk. I'm recommending that the council redefine the process, and so I propose an interview committee consisting of the city administrator, deputy clerk, and a member of the affected department. The new committee would also be given the option to include an outside party to participate in the interview process if they so wish, as long as there's no cost to the city. An example would be including other public safety personnel to participate in the current fire chief interviews. All current processes used in the job posting and applicant rating would continue to be used, i.e. the city council approves the job posting, the closing date based upon the recommendation of the city administrator. City council will continue to be responsible for the final hiring decision. This committee responsibilities would be limited to positions reporting to the city administrator. My recommendation will hopefully lessen the time period between job posting, closing, applicant rating, scheduling interviews, and presentation to the city council. In addition, as the committee members will be working with the new hire on a daily basis, they are best suited to determine if the applicant is a good fit. So I move that the city council implement a new process for interviewing for open city positions. The new process will be an interview committee consisting of the city administrator, deputy clerk, and a member of the affected department. The committee will have the option to include outside party if they so wish, as long as there's no cost to the city. An example, as I stated before, would be including other public safety personnel to participate in the fire chief interviews. All current processes used in the job posting and applicant rating will continue to be used. And the city council will approve the job posting, closing dates based on recommendation of the city administrator. City council will continue to be responsible for the final hiring decision. This committee's responsibilities would be limited to positions reporting to the city administrator, and it would be, this change would be effective November 13th and does not have any effect on the current fire chief hiring process. Let me get a second.
That is a motion.
Second for discussion.
Okay, we have a motion, Councilmember Rainville, second, Councilmember Alders.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember
we've
Bryan.
been having conversations about putting things off till the new council's in, and I think we have a process for current hiring process that's in place. We should be able to use that. Granted, we need to, based on the last couple of meetings, adjust it as far as who the council members are going to be, but we have that in place, and then going forward, if the new council wants to change the hiring process, the new council would have that ability to.
I do think it's important because we're a statutory city, All employees are technically employees of the council. And I think only getting a name at the end and voting on it doesn't serve the responsibilities that the elected officials have in a statutory city. I do think it's important for the council to continue to be part of that. Again, if the new council wants to change that, but I think that that it's important for the elected officials to be responsible to the residents on staffing. So,
Mr.
you know,
Mayor?
who the interview committee will be, yeah, it's up to the council. I think that, you know, to clarify, one of the things we've said in the past is while staff members are part of the interview process, they have not been voting members of that. And if the two council members disagree on the final recommendation to the council, the practice has been to bring those candidate or candidates to the council for the final interview. And I think that's an effective way until the new council decides otherwise.
So, Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rainville.
I don't know of any other city that the city council is involved in the hiring process other than the final acceptance of a new employee. It's done by the internal staff. And I believe this is the right route. We have 2 positions that are open now. We need to get them filled. With Scott's resignation, it's even more important that we are able to start tomorrow with interviews of people who have submitted applications. Natalie is going to have her hands full, and she needs to have that staff support within the office. And so I believe this is an important change, and a change that's needed, and needed even more so given our city administrator's resignation. The council is still this council is still the final hiring, has final hiring decision.
Yeah, that would be, a name is presented to us and it's a yes or no. I would say there's probably a lot of things other cities do that we don't do. A lot of other cities have HR departments. A lot of other cities are running away, I don't think now, than residents want their cities to be run. We keep hearing, please don't become the cities we moved from. So I don't know that that's we have a small staff. And I do think, again, if you look at the statutes, that the council delegates responsibilities that they can't handle themselves. They don't have time to handle themselves. And I think this is one of those things that's important for the council to be responsible to the residents for the screening of the employees that we hire. But that's my opinion.
Mr. Mayor,
Sir?
do you think your city administrator has less responsibility to the residents of now than to get the right person in there?
I think that you're not elected.
Okay, so.
And that's my point is there's a different responsibility as we have seen. Elections matter, and if the residents aren't happy with what's going on, then they have the opportunity to do something about that.
Mr. Mayor, I think Mary's.
They did, yeah.
Mary's point is, if it's at a Scott level decision and it's his team, we empower Scott and have the trust in him to find and retain the best staff of the city. And like, literally, we just had someone get a exemplary award. So I guess I agree. It's like, I am not gonna be able to find or ask a better question than our administrator would be on who do we think is best for the office, or who do we think is best for one of our team members that are going to be plowing snow. It's like, I think it comes down to, it's like, for this role, we're trusting this person to put together the team to make it happen for the city. Ultimately, yes, we have the decision right on, hey, here's the person that they're recommending, but do we trust that person's judgment and let them make the call and let them run their team? I think is what it comes down to.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan.
we've also said that we're going to talk to the league and get best practices, and then based on that information, theoretic, and looking into changing policies and procedures. We've even had that discussion tonight about this is probably best waited till after we get the new council in place. So let's treat this like all the other ones that we talked about that need to be revisited with the new council and go with that.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rainville.
I'm just trying to be of help to staff. Again, we have 2 openings. We need to get them filled. We need to get them filled ASAP. We're coming into a holiday period. People's schedules are busy. To try to get scheduling in, the more people you involve in trying to be part of an interview, that can delay the process based on current obligations of the existing council. Again, I'm just trying to move this process forward so that staff can get interviews done and get somebody in front of the council for a decision, hopefully in December.
Mr. Mayor, can I finish my thought now?
I'd like to hear his thought.
Finish your thought.
So we waited to be able to have this conversation. We had interviews scheduled for 3 candidates for administrative assistant as of Friday. We weren't able to do those interviews because we needed to come here because we didn't necessarily have a process in place. We do have interviews scheduled now for the 14th for 3 candidates to be able to come forward. The whole idea behind this is to be able to kind of expedite things and move things. I've also had other conversations with council members that really want us to take a look at the recycling center. I'd really like to be able to leave staff in a good position with the remaining time that I have here. And the more that this stuff drags on and drags on and drags on, it's longer for me to be able to try to help and make a smooth transition here. So I would just like the council to consider the fact that I think you have a capable administrator and staff here that can do interviews to be able to bring in a couple administrative assistants without upsetting the apple cart or making residents in the city of Nowthen upset. So thank you for letting me finish.
This was approved in September. Again, we approved the, moving forward on the request for staffing in September. It's now November 12th. We had a process in place, obviously broke down later on. But I do think it's important to have council take part of the responsibility, so.
Mr. Mayor?
I'm going to call the vote.
Mr. Mayor?
I'm calling the vote.
Okay, and I had asked before you said call the vote, so. There's nothing that says we have to be part of this process.
And I didn't recognize you.
Oh, okay. All right. All right.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Nay?
Nay.
Motion fails.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville.
then who does the council wish to be in on the interviews on the 14th? And who is staff comfortable having in on the interviews?
Well, it's up to the council. I guess if staff gets to determine what council gets to do, then they should be on the council.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Bryan.
interviews on the 14th, I'll find out tomorrow if I can make the 14th work. If I knew roughly what the times are.
Mr. Mayor, I have a commitment from 10:15 to 3, which means I'm gone from 8:30 to 4. So I'm unavailable that day. And I cannot cancel that out.
When's the interview? Do you have them scheduled? Or
I
you
do, yep, Mr. Mayor. Okay. The first interview is at noon, second interview 1:30, third interview 2:45. So basically from noon to 3 o'clock is what we have them all three scheduled for. First one starting at noon.
Noon?
Noon.
You went too fast, I couldn't.
Oh, I'm sorry, noon, 1:30, and 2:45.
I can do it.
I'll make it work.
You can make it work?
I'll take the day off, or half the day off.
So
Do we want to?
Councilmember Bryan and Councilmember Alders will be the,
Do we need two?
yeah.
Okay. Noon, 1:30, and 2:45 on the 14th. 11/14, got it.
Yes, sir, that's correct. City offices, we'll have everything ready for you, packets and everything.
All right, so that takes care of the next RCA.
So, Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rainville,
Under old business, the...
we have three things we moved already. Let's see.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry, I forgot. My apologies.
All right, first one we moved was the October 8th minutes. And on item number 8, administrator update on the October 8th minutes, it would be page 31 in your packet. I believe the actual number for the road study was $21,200, and the $1,500 was the MS4 payment. So I think that really should be $21,200 for the road study.
That is what the road study was, yes.
Okay, this says $1,500.
Oh, I didn't see that piece of it.
That was for the MS4.
Yes, the MS4 was 1,500. Sorry, I did not catch it.
All right,
No, we do not have an invoice yet, so. Not for lack of trying, but.
then I had a question on item number 9, too. On the Ortel property. That we had a remove concrete and fill bid for $3,500 if Mr. Ortel did not respond to remedy this or ask the courts for an extension in 15 days. Did he ask the courts for extension?
No, because we're still working with the county to be able to get the information delivered to him. The county's gonna charge us $80, and they will make 3 attempts to try to get a hold of him at a residence that we think he's at right now. So we're in the process of making that happen right now. So he has not even received, or we have not attempted to serve him yet at this point. So that is still coming. We got to work through that process, what it looks like. And I worked with Bob to make sure that we were good, so.
I'm trying to find him.
And trying to find him is hard, yeah. I mean, we could spend the money and try 3 times, it's not, then what do? We went through certain channels to try to find out where we think he is, but we're just kind of hoping at this point, so. But more to come on that. But that estimate is still good for that work, yeah, if that was the question.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Rainville.
to City Administrator Laner, is it $80 per attempt or $80 for 3 attempts?
$80 for 3 attempts is what
For
I've gotten on an email, yeah, that they will do
And
the
can
3 attempts for that price.
And then can the chief deputy, if we are unable to reach him and provide him, do we just move forward with the process?
I have to check the statute
Statute,
on
okay.
that, yeah. Our team is pretty good, so let them give it a shot, and maybe we can discuss
Okay.
next steps from there. I'm happy to chime in when needed on
Okay, thank you.
So we, I'll move to authorize the $80 for the 3 attempts to find him.
So moved.
I moved, you're seconding?
Yeah.
So motion by the mayor, second by Councilmember Bryan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. And then I had one other thing that, on page 32 of that report, sale of the, potential sale of the outlot. There's gonna be some discussion with the attorney, the engineer, the planner, and the administrator and myself, to what it would take to get that. Has anything moved forward on that?
We have, so I have just asked our planner and engineer to be able to look at what steps are we gonna have to step through to make sure, what have we already done, so we don't have to duplicate the process. That was an important part that council shared. Let's not duplicate what we have. And once they are getting the information back to me, then we will schedule the meeting with your, Mayor, you are involved in that, because I know you have a lot, you had information and you were kind of the point person there for a while. But they are still doing their research and getting back to, I have not heard back from either one of them on next steps, so. But it is, it has been moving forward since the last council meeting. I have met with the two of them to document what process has been done, what still needs to be done, and what does it look like going forward for that piece of property. Yep. And then we will get the rest of us together.
All right. And with those notes, with those comments, with the corrections on the Moore Engineering, I would move the minutes for the October 8th.
Second.
Motion from the mayor, second from Councilor Rainville. Any other discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. And Councilmember Rainville, you had something on,
I see him.
You,
oh, I'm sorry, ICMA. I'd say we table that until you have a new administrator.
I second that.
Any other discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I'm a yes, sorry.
Yep,
I'm a yes, I didn't verbally said it to myself.
Who first and seconded that one?
I first, Councilmember Rainville second. And Councilmember Rainville, you had something out of the old business?
Yes, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th bullet point was an action item for me to contact Sue Dahl for the SCORE grant, which was in the consent agenda, so that can be taken off the action items.
All right, anything else? Seeing and hearing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned.
We didn't talk about the financial, the third quarter report.
Oh, I'm sorry. We did miss that one. We didn't approve the third quarter financial report. So we're unadjourned for. I move that we table the third quarter financial report to the December meeting. I was looking through the year-to-date numbers, and I think it's not, there's a number of things that 3/4 of the year through we're at 100 to 300% over our budgeted numbers. And I think it would behoove us to look at the expenditures to date in conjunction with that report from Lori before year end here, because we won't get the fourth quarter report until the new council's there. So I would table that third quarter report until the December meeting. My motion.
I'd second that for discussion.
All right.
So if you have concerns, Mr. Mayor, can you
provide those concerns to staff so that we can have them to look at prior to.
Yep, because I just got the report tonight on our desk, so. Like looking through the second quarter report and the numbers we had during the budget cycle, that's what, so I will provide those to staff. Now I'll take that motion to adjourn. Oh, so we had a motion, a second. All those in favor of tabling that till December meeting, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Try again, Mary.
Motion to adjourn. Third time, I think.
Looks like you had a good season with the hot rock. Yeah. I'm glad it's kind of like horses. It's great to get going.